all of us have got different interests and passions in our lives, but the way to discover those is by exposing yourself to as many different things as possible, and by exposing lots of young people to swim, bike, run, triathlon, we really hope that it becomes the passion for some of those who then want to take it forward.
Joining us in the studio today is two-time Olympic gold medalist, multi-time world and European champion, and Commonwealth Games champion, as well as co-founder of the Brownlee Foundation, Alistair Brownlee. Welcome to the podcast, Alistair. How are you doing?
Hi, David. It's great to be here, and thank you very much for having me.
Alistair, before we jump in and celebrate some of your great achievements on the bike and off the bike, let's just start with the beginning. Tell us a little bit about you and where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Yorkshire, in and around Leeds, which is a town in northern England, to two parents who were both very active but not competitive sports people. My mum was a swimmer when she was younger, and my dad was a runner, and then obviously both had jobs and careers, both doctors, and bringing up three boys, I think obviously meant they didn't have a lot of time for their own sporting activities, but a really active lifestyle. And I remember from a very young age being about 6 and being obsessed with a bunch of medals that my mum had won when she was younger, and saying, I want to win some of those. And someone told me you could win those at the local swimming club. So mum took Jonny and I. So Jonny's my younger brother who has been racing a little bit as well with me over the years. And my dad was a runner and just active and enjoyed cycling and running. So yeah, got us into running and cross country running and just being active really. So all our weekends were filled with going for walks and going for bike rides and stuff, and just being out and about. And really my kind of lasting memory of being young is enjoying being outside, enjoying being active, and just enjoying the kind of environment around me, rather than sport. And that sport kind of took hold of me gradually, I'd say, from the very first competitions I did as a swimmer, and specific really as a runner. I remember doing early cross-country races and stuff, and being absolutely terrible at running around this muddy, wet, cold field in Leeds, but for some reason loving it, and it all started from there.
Were you competitive swimming as well, or did you sort of try swimming out and then quickly jump into running?
I was relatively competitive swimming. I wasn't great at it. I think I was frequently one of the best in like Yorkshire, so in my region, and maybe the north of England at some events. I very quickly, I think, realised that I was an endurance swimmer, and that was all I was good at. I had no speed ability to be able to sprint, and I did a bit of that. And I'd say kind of through my early teens, I was swimming and running in tandem, and at that point I'd discovered triathlon as a 8-year-old, and my sporting schedule could look like, could be doing a cross-country running race on a Saturday, some kind of swimming event on the Sunday, and that'd be through the winter. And then in the summer, I'd be doing a triathlon on a weekend through the summer months. And then it'd get back round to September, and I'd be back outside running cross-country again and doing swimming. So I did all sorts, as well as cycling events at the same time, a bit of cyclocross and racing and all kinds of things. So yeah. And I wouldn't say I absolutely loved triathlon the first time I did it as an 8-year-old, even though I wasn't very good at it. But I'd say triathlon really took over as my kind of main sport once I got to my late teens. And that was when I really decided to focus on triathlon as a sport rather than anything else.
That's incredible. Were there any heroes of the sport, either running, swimming, or triathlon, that you admired or followed that motivated you?
Well, at that time, from being young, I was following all sport. I, really remember staying up to watch triathlon make its debut in the Sydney Olympic Games, and obviously rooting for the British guys and in Simon Lessing, Tim, and Andrew Johns, and Simon Lessing was kind of the the big favourite at the time. When I first started triathlon, my uncle was doing Ironman. So as an 8-9-year-old, I was aware of Ironman, and I was aware of the race that is Kona, and that being the kind of mythical big race. So I'd kind of know about that and know of the guys who were doing well there, probably by the end of the 90s, early 2000s, in triathlon. But yeah, followed everything. I'd watch swimming a little bit, more around the Olympic Games, but follow running and obviously the Ethiopian greats of Gabriel Selassie and Kenenisa Bekele at the time, and Paula Ratcliffe doing amazing things in the marathon from Great Britain. And in cycling, very much in the era of the early 2000s of watching Lance Armstrong dominate at the time, and my summer holidays were pretty much devoted to watching the Tour de France.
Did you have dreams at that early age, call it 12 to 14 years old, of actually competing in the Olympics one day yourself?
I think I had dreams, and I've always been slightly obsessed with the Olympic Games as an achievement, as a goal for me of trying to get there, and of how fantastic the sport is and bringing people together from all over the world, both in terms of being there, but also as a fan, sitting down. And I remember when the Olympics came around in 2004, Jonny and I just watching all kinds of random sports, getting into badminton, for example, and, really involved sports that you'd never watched normally. So that concept of bringing all kinds of different sports and amazing athletes and different disciplines together and putting them on a global stage to help people discover and be inspired by sports that they wouldn't otherwise be exposed to was something I think really important to me, and still is. But yeah, I think I dreamed of being there, but that dream was very different from, it was a dream. I never thought it was possible. I tell this anecdote quite a lot. I remember the day when London won the bid to win the Olympic Games in 2012. It was in July 2005. I'm still a schoolboy, and a teacher walks down the corridor and says, "Oh, have you seen that London have won the bid to hold the Olympic Games?" And I said, "Oh yeah, that's great." And just thinking, isn't that fantastic? But it's irrelevant to me. I'm never going to be there. Really cool thing. But yeah, I've just, I'm thinking of maths or whatever's the next lesson. I mean, I never in a million years thought I'd be at the Olympics in 3 years' time in Beijing then, and on the start line in London.
It's incredible. Yeah, and you'd go on to win and in your hometown, right? Or at least your home country. That's incredible. Now, you didn't start racing right away. You actually went to university and started to study medicine, right?
Yeah, I did. Academics and my school had been very important to me from a early age. I just wanted to do everything that I did well, and also I found I was really interested in science and learning about things and actually learning about concepts and understanding. I've always had a bit of an obsession with trying to understand how things work and things happen rather than just kind of tying things together. So I enjoyed school and I enjoyed my academics, and my family is a fairly academic, places a high value on my education, and that was fantastic. So at the same time as doing sport, I was trying to do as well as I could in my schooling. And so I, at the age of 18, I had this fantastic opportunity to study medicine, and at the same time I'd achieved probably my dream at the time, which was to win the World Junior Triathlon Championships. And I was thinking, wow, maybe I could be one of the best triathletes in the year, maybe in the world. Maybe I could make it to the Olympic Games in a few years' time. And that left me in a difficult but very fortunate situation of having two amazing opportunities and deciding. And my dad gave me some fantastic advice. He said, I think you should go and start studying, because you don't know if it's 100%. You don't know if it's not for you unless you try. And that was a brilliant bit of advice. I mean, I think he almost certainly thought that once I was there and studying at university, I wouldn't stop. But I did do it, and I did ultimately decide that sport is what I really wanted to do. And I think that was massively important for me because it always meant in my sporting career that I was doing it, and it was really important to do it as well as I possibly could because, I'd given up other things to do it.
Could you ever see yourself at some point, if and when you retire from racing, switching gears, or as the show's titled, changing gears to go back into medicine or education? Or do you think this is your purpose in life, is to be the best you can in sport and then to inspire others through the foundation?
Well, I very much believe my purpose in life is to do the best I can in sport, and I realise that through that, both Jonny and I, and I guess the kind of reputation we've built up, we've got an amazing opportunity that comes with the privilege to try and inspire people to be active and live lives in a more active and healthy way, and we take that responsibility very seriously, which is why we set up the Brownlee Foundation and do a number of other things. But yeah, that doesn't mean to say alongside that, and some form of education couldn't help me to do that in a better, more efficient form. I think there's a few competing things. I think I'll always want to be really active. So, one of the things post-sport that I've always been looking forward to the most is the opportunity to do other sporting events and be active for a little bit more fun, to be able to go and do some more crazy gravel competing, to do some multi-stage mountain bike racing, to do some long distance endurance cycling events and endurance adventure racing. Anything that you can think of, I'd like to have a crack at. But at the same time, I think doing other stuff is important for me to try and succeed, probably in other disciplines.
Oh, you'd be fun to watch in some of those. So keep us posted with what you're doing next after traditional triathlon is over. Certainly, the gravel triathlon scene is starting to pick up some speed, right?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I've done a little bit of gravel bike racing and and raced off-road in various forms over the years and all kinds of things. Did a lot of cyclocross when I was a kid, and it's kind of funny because 20 years ago cyclocross was probably the least glamorous sport. Well, cyclocross and cross-country running, you basically turn up to a muddy field in Britain in the middle of winter and cycle round the edge of a football pitch round some cones in knee-deep mud, and while people watch in horizontal rain. And now this world of off-road cycling is super cool and fashionable, and so yeah, I think it's brilliant. I think gravel bikes are super utilitarian, and that's fantastic. I think gravel racing is brilliant. I've done a few, so thinking of one I did in Britain last year, that just the fact it's obviously closed and safe and there's no traffic around and you can alter the courses and you're not having to close roads, all those kind of practical things, but at the same time just make for great competition. So yeah, I think off-road triathlon, I think has got some real legs, and it'll be exciting to see how that progresses.
Yeah. All right, Alistair, we're going to switch to the sprint round of our podcast here, where I throw a bunch of this or that at you and see what your personal preferences are. So we're going to start with gloves or gloveless.
Gloveless. I'll just caveat that with depends what the temperature is.
Right. How about pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
Gels or real food?
Real food.
Beer or wine?
Beer.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Spicy or mild?
Spicy.
Hot weather or cold weather?
Cold weather.
A power meter or perceived effort?
Power meter.
Yeah, you like your data, right?
Yeah, it depends.
Yeah.
I think there's a place actually for everything, but I think especially for specific training for long distance, a power meter for sure is really important to get yourself effort, prescription, training prescription, and then in the race itself, pacing and effort prescription. I think it's really important in long distance racing.
Yeah, absolutely. Alistair, so you've had an incredible career on the bike, some amazing achievements, victories, medals, championships. Inevitably, something goes wrong. You have an accident or there's some mishap. What's the scariest thing that ever happened to you on the bike?
Scariest thing that's ever happened to me on a bike. There's been quite a lot over the years. I think we're going back a long time, but I was riding in the Pyrenees up a mountain road with a couple of friends. Can't remember exactly where, but somewhere in the Pyrenees in France, and on a big mountain climb, as you can imagine. And we're riding two abreast up the road. We're in Europe, so on the right-hand side. I'm the one on the left, and a motorbike comes round a blind corner on the wrong side of the road and just hits me absolutely head on. And it was one of those where you just don't know what's happened. You're on the floor. You slowly move one arm at a time, and the other arm, then one leg and the other leg. And, you're thinking, oh, everything's okay. And then I realised I think I had a frozen shoulder or something. I was like, oh, what's wrong with that? And I looked down at my bike, and it was in about 8 different pieces, and the front wheel was completely shattered. And it was real nasty because it was one of those things, completely out of my control. And I really haven't crashed actually that much, touch wood. That was really nasty, and it could have been a lot worse.
Wow. But you were able to walk away with scrapes and bruises or anything serious?
I went to hospital in an ambulance, but I think I had a bit of a sore frozen shoulder for a couple of days. I remember going swimming with one arm for a couple of days, and then I was okay. I was really, really lucky.
How about on the subject of bonking, or just being completely out of gas in a race? Everyone I'm sure has seen the internet replay of you and your brother at Cozumel, where you came up on him as he was just about to finish a few years ago, right? And he was just completely out of gas. How about you? Have you ever been in a moment like that where you've just completely bonked in a race?
The worst situation by far I've ever been in was when I did Ironman Kona. Combination of probably the nutrition strategy, obviously the heat, me getting a puncture and then having to ride harder than I would have liked. And it completely blew up. And in so many training situations and other races, being able to bring myself back around, by just dropping off the pace, eating a bit more, and then 15, 20 minutes later, you're okay. But for some reason on that day in that race, that wasn't going to happen. And I, being me, I was like, I've absolutely 100% got to finish this. So I'm going to finish. But however long I had left, trying to get around 15 miles of a marathon is a long way when you're in a bad place.
Right. But you finished, right?
Finished. Yeah, it really wasn't fun, but I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of triathlon, most people think that triathlon is just 3 disciplines, right? Swim, bike, and run. But it's actually about 10 different disciplines, right? Outside of those 3, there's nutrition and hydration and sleep and recovery and all these other things. Aside from the swim, the bike, and the run, what's the other piece for you in triathlon that's the hardest to master?
Yeah, I think you're right. There is loads of disciplines, and for all endurance sport, I guess that's kind of similar. The whole training and managing training load and your nutrition and recovery, and balancing all of that is the tough thing. Yeah, for me, it is definitely, I guess, recovery and injury management. I think definitely it's got harder, probably being an older athlete to an extent. I've always been quite susceptible to injuries, and managing that and ultimately being on the right side of training, not hard enough to give yourself injuries, but at the same time hard to be competitive and do it well, is the thing that's definitely the biggest challenge of my career.
Right. Let's switch to the real fun subject that I'm most interested in, and that's the foundation. So you guys, you and your brother have had some incredible success, and at some point you have this epiphany and you say to yourselves, what? Hey, Jonny, let's start a foundation and let's teach kids. Tell me about the origin of the Brownlee Foundation. How did it start? What was the vision, and what are you doing with it now?
So I'd say the epiphany came post London 2012. We were getting asked to speak, go into every school, I think in most of England, thousands of requests. And I think we both realised, yeah, well, firstly, we're in an amazing position here that people want to hear us talk about being active and health and fitness and setting goals and whatever else. Secondly, yeah, we've got a massive opportunity to do some real good if people are going to listen. And thirdly, like I said earlier, I think that gives us or leaves us with an enormous responsibility to do something about it. So the foundation really came out of those principles, where we were thinking, look, we've got to do something here, but what can we do that gives the most, the kind of most bang for the buck? You know, obviously we can't go to 1,000 schools, but we can kind of get people to come to us. We can try and preach the message of health and active lifestyles. And I think we decided to, discussed a lot of how we wanted to do it and with what sport, and obviously triathlon, because we do triathlon, but also it's a great vessel for kids and young people to experience 3 different sports. And to us sitting here, that might seem crazy, but honestly, there's some kids you see, I don't think they've never seen a swimming pool before, even though it's a statutory requirement for kids leaving primary school to be able to swim. Many young people, we do it ages kind of 9, 10 year olds, they come in their schools, can't ride a bike at that age, so give them an opportunity to do that. So and Jonny and I fundamentally believe that actually everyone, all of us, have got different interests and passions in our lives. Sure. But the way to discover those is by exposing yourself to as many different things as possible, and by exposing lots of young people to swim, bike, run, triathlon, we really hope that it becomes the passion for some of those who then want to take it forward. So our events, they're very roughly about 1,000 people who come a day. In 1,000 young people come in a day. We had over 10,000 young people do events with us this year, which is fantastic. And obviously, if a small number of them that we try and help and support want to do more triathlon or swimming or cycling or running in the future, how can we help them and to do that? Can we point them in the right direction? That kind of thing, and working with their schools and to do that. So that's the idea behind it.
That's incredible. And the fact that you guys touch so many kids is really amazing. I mean, thousands and thousands of kids. Is it exclusively in the UK, or have you branched out into other countries at this point?
We're exclusively in the UK. So it's a completely it's a charitable foundation. There's nothing to stop us doing it in other places. Our limiting factor is effectively the amount of private money we can raise to put on events, and it's very direct. We actually we've got one fantastic employee who runs the foundation for us called Scariest, who works phenomenally hard on it, and she coordinates everything from day to day to talking to partners and supporters and schools, to putting on events all over the country. And so UK focused. We've had some fantastic partners. One of them being actually a Polish foundation called the Phoenix Foundation that you see in triathlon, with some various athletes wearing the Phoenix logo now, which is really cool. Supporting that's exactly our aims align exactly in terms of trying to help young people to be active and live healthy lifestyles. Amazing.
Congratulations. Alistair, I'm just curious, are there any other passions of yours outside of the foundation or otherwise that you're interested in or thinking about starting, or tell us about some of those?
Mostly, I as well as the foundation, obviously people being active. I just believe in general. I think obviously people being active and healthy is absolutely key, and that goes for me and anyone else. I think there's times in our lives that we all probably need some kind of motivation, inspiration to do things differently, to be a bit more active. Probably not for me all the time, but for some of the time, and probably going into the future. I think that is ultimately the sports industry, isn't it? It's finding ways to motivate and inspire people to get outside, to explore and appreciate their local environment, which is really important to me as well. As much of my motivation and inspiration for sport comes from loving the environment and the local area that I'm in, and an activity for a healthy lifestyle. And I think along with that message is important. I also think the kind of the products and the world around that, I think, is important as well. So, obviously having fantastic equipment to go out and ride on from SRAM is part of that. And another part of that might be linking people up to do it socially in clubs, or using technology to provide behavioural economic insights to help people get out the door. So all those things interest me a lot, and both on a personal level and on a level of trying to help other people too.
Amazing. Well, Alistair, we are out of time for this show today. I want to thank you so much for joining us and sharing your journey with all of our listeners.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks so much, Alistair. We'll talk soon.